Hello and welcome. My name is Robert Santana. I'm the CEO of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Central Orange Coast. You know, as I think about what makes our organization successful, it's all about relationships. The relationships that we build with our kids and our parents, the relationships we build with our partners in the community and in organizations like the cities and school districts. And today we're very fortunate to have a friend of the Boys and Girls Club, Miss Eileen McDargh, join us as we talk about something that I think has become even more relevant through this pandemic, which is the topic of resiliency and leadership, and really the effects of burnout that I think we're all feeling. And so I'm really excited for our time today, and thank you for your support of our incredible mission here at the Boys and Girls Club, and such a tremendous role model to our young girls as they look up to successful leaders in the community that have such tremendous insight and thoughtfulness around how we treat each other and how we support each other and how we get through everything that's going on together. So thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my joy. You know, long ago and far away, I was a teacher at a remote agricultural town at the Florida-Georgia border. I love my kids, Robert. I love my kids. And they are like some of the kids that you have where their parents could be absent. And so anything that we can do to help children and young adults, that's tomorrow. And
Absolutely.
We have to do that.
I think, you just hit kind of the mission of our Boys and Girls Club, right? We believe that the superpower of mentorship has the potential to break the cycle of poverty, to help unlock someone's passions and their voice, to help them find their path in life. I've never met a successful person that is self-made, right? Obviously there's ambition and drive, but every successful person that I've ever learned about, that I've known, is successful because of the generosity of other people. They've benefited from having mentors either, in their childhood, but more than likely in their adult life. And I'm sure that you benefit from people in your life to this day, just like I do, having those mentors.
That's so true. And I think you raised the point that here we are in this environment that we've never been at before, where we've got COVID-19, we've got lockdown, we've got burnout. And so what we know in childhood development, that if you don't have a significant adult with you, in which you feel seen, secure, supported, and safe, and soothed. Let me add that, soothed. Those are 5 things that when you're an infant, you look for, but guess what? We need that when we are in our early elementary, as adults, as adolescents, and then as adults. And that's the role that I think in this craziness that significant adults can play for this generation that's coming up.
I think that's such an interesting point, and none of us have ever felt the way that we feel right now, right? This is certainly a new thing for us, but it's interesting that the way that we overcome obstacles, and I know we're about to talk about resiliency, right? But we often will share our prior experiences to help us navigate our current experiences, right? So even though we've never been in this exact scenario, we have been through crisis before. We have survived difficult times, and we use that experience to help us navigate through this very difficult time. And I guess this is probably a great opportunity for us to kind of take a quick moment to define what it means to be resilient, right? And this topic of burnout, because I think we're all feeling something, and I think it's great for us to probably frame this up. What does that mean? Well,
first off, let me say that I think many of us have been through crisis. What happens when we're in where we are right now, we forget that we survived the other parts. And one of the jobs of having colleagues, of having mentors, significant adults, is help you. You did this before. Remember the skill that you had, because you haven't lost it.
Absolutely.
It's still there. So let me tee this up in a way, and it's probably related to my newest book, which is Burnout to Breakthrough, Building Resilience to Refuel, Recharge, and Reclaim What Matters. So the reason I start Burnout to Breakthrough is that first we have to recognize what the symptoms are. But to get over here through breakthrough, we have to break out. And break out means that you step and go, oh my gosh, that's what's happening. That's what's happening. And breakthrough is when you develop the skill. Well, building resilience is how we do this. And notice I've said building, I-N-G. It's an active verb. It's not built. It's not done.
Yeah.
It's not, okay, that's it, done the crisis, I'm just fine. So I think this is a life skill.
Absolutely.
And so for me, I disagree with the dictionary definition of resilience.
So you're saying that the way that it's defined in the dictionary isn't the most applicable to us as human beings.
Exactly. Because if you read it, and I'll paraphrase, but basically that is an object under stress. When the stress is relieved, it goes back to its original position. Well, that's fine if you're a piece of steel or you're a willow tree. But Robert, you and I don't go back. There is no back.
Yeah.
You cannot step in the same river twice. So what resilience is, to me, it's not this bounce back scenario that you hear people saying. It's how do we grow through
Absolutely.
challenge or opportunity so we end up wiser, smarter, better on the other side. And because it's growth, when something else happens, oh my God, there's another growth opportunity. And to me, at the end of the day, resilience is all about energy management.
Energy management.
Yeah.
And so I love the way that you frame that up, because it really does remind us that we're in control of how we spend, invest, use our energy. We're in control of who we spend time with and how we spend our time. And I'm an optimist. I choose to be an optimist. And I would hope that out of all this pain and you know, this uncertainty that we've seen, we come out of this having a deeper appreciation for relationships, a deeper appreciation for the people that we spend our time with and what we do with that time. But energy management, can you tell us more about what does that mean? Because I love that concept that you are kind of, you know, in control of yourself.
Well, first off, you think about energy, all the universe is energy. And Einstein, you know, E equals mc squared. There's Einstein. To me, it means E, energy, equals meaningful connection to the power of 2.
Wow.
Energy equals meaningful connection. So if you think about this, Robert, energy flows through all of us. And if you take a power grid, when the connection is good, the power moves across the lines, and what do you know? The light goes on. If the energy is bad, if the connection is bad, the energy doesn't go across. So like if I turn the car, you know, the key in the car, it's good connection, car goes. Bad connection, the energy's drained.
Absolutely.
So the question then for all of us at every age is what gives me energy, what depletes my energy.
I think that's, I mean, just the way that you frame that up. I certainly can understand that you know, we're certainly not going to go back to the way that things were, and you know, this is an opportunity for us to overcome these obstacles and strengthen ourselves. When we think about resiliency, and you mentioned your book, you know, burnout to breakthrough. There's phases that you describe of how you get through this, right? And there's that aha moment is what you mentioned. And I think we're, you know, a lot of us have experienced these types of realizations through the course of this pandemic. It's understanding that something different is happening. You know, maybe we didn't appreciate that, you know, that time that we were spending with certain people. Now we do. And as we think about health, and for us in our world as a Boys and Girls Club, the term safety has been redefined for us, right? And so never did we, you know, pay this much attention to, you know, hand washing, and obviously with the masks and social distancing, but it's now a part of our DNA that in order to keep people safe, there's just certain things that have changed, right? As we think about burnout, and this is something you and I already kind of spoke about, but you know, we often think about burnout at work, right? Sometimes, and I guess, you know, a little bit of, you know, me being naive, you know, sometimes we think about burnout as like, well, you know, you're in a job that you're not good for, you don't like, but the reality is burnout can happen in so many different ways, in a career that you love, in a place that you love, and it's really like a roller coaster. There's times that if you don't monitor your energy, manage your energy, you know, these things can kind of get to you, right? And So can we talk about burnout, both, whether it's professional, but my guess is we're feeling burnout at home, right? As parents, as adult siblings to each other, all these things are probably tough. And can you tell me what
I'm going to make you my poster boy. Click, click. I got you on that one. First off, we are seeing more burnout since people are working remotely.
Really?
Because what we're discovering is that, first off, because I don't have this boundary of work, I don't go down and have a cup of coffee with Joe, and I don't go to lunch with Susan, that we're working more and more. But, oh my gosh, I have a child over here. I have 2 dogs over here. I'm sharing this little table with you, my spouse. Get over, get away, get away. These are my papers here. So the stress and the pressure of being at home makes this a huge issue. So when we think about moving through, you used an interesting term, and I want to go back to it because I think it's really important, Robert. You said, I choose to be optimistic. I would suggest that choose is one of the most powerful words in the English language.
Okay.
Because what I hear many of us, and I do the same thing, by the way, I teach what I need to learn. So I'm talking out loud to myself as I talk out loud to you. When we say, I have to do this, I just gave the power away.
Yeah.
When I say I choose, now I'm in control. So one of the first skills of resiliency is adaptability. It's the willingness to find multiple choices for myself. I might not like all those choices, but the fact that I do have choices, and sometimes when we say I have to do this, I really want to say, no, you don't have to. I didn't have to come here today.
Yeah.
This was my choice, Robert. I wanted to do this. So when my husband said, where are you going? I said, I'm choosing to go be filmed for the Boys and Girls Club. Of course I am. It's my choice. And there could be other choices in there. So I think that's one of the first things, is to catch ourselves saying, I have to do this.
And so that's interesting because, you use the word adaptability, and I've heard you speak about resiliency as a muscle, not a pill, right? And we're so used to, in this kind of day and age, that there's a pill for everything. There's a quick solution. There's no quick solution to building that grit, that resiliency. It really is something that you're always working on, right? And so can we talk about adaptability and resiliency as a muscle, as a skill? Because, the last year as the leader of this Boys and Girls Club, flexibility and adaptability has been our biggest strength, because as we've looked at the landscape, we've made changes. And not only when we operate, I mean, we're primarily known for working mostly in the afternoon.
Sure.
We completely shifted, and in most cases expanded our hours of operation for full day services. And we're delivering meals and distributing laptops to kids that didn't have technology. These are things that are a result of us being flexible, adaptable to the changes in the environment. And you mentioned that that's one of the 4 kind of components of building resiliency. So can you walk us through that skill of that, that component of building resiliency?
Sure. And I thank you for referencing the thing about muscle. Because if you think about it, that resiliency is like a muscle. So if I've never used it, if I've never faced whatever's the situation, I'm not going to go in and pick up a 70-pound weight and say, woohoo, watch me. Yeah. You got to start small, okay? But what builds the muscle is repetition over time. So what are the things that I want to work on over time? Maybe the first thing I want to work on is to catch myself saying I have to. And I'm going to say, no, I'm choosing to. I'm going to have my kids say, look, if I say I have to, I want you to go, no, Mom. In fact, that's the first way. When my youngest was like 13 or 14, that's when I got the thing about the difference between choose and have. She was going out to babysit. And she said, oh, I have to go babysit. I said, no, you don't have to go. She said, well, I promised. I said, oh, so you're choosing to keep your promise. Well, I want the money. Go, oh, so you're choosing to go. So you can hear the semantic battle. And about a week later, we're having dinner. And I said something like, oh, I have to go to New York for clients. She piped up, no, you don't, Mom.
Isn't it funny how that always comes back to bite you? Yeah.
Oh, got me, you got me. So this idea of building a muscle is to find the things that you know and start small that you can begin to work on.
Absolutely.
So this adaptability, again, like we said, finding multiple ways. So what I find interesting is that there are multiple ways for you to serve the boys and girls within your area. So if I couldn't do it this way, in how many other ways can we serve them or their parents or the seniors who can't get out? And I will bet you anything, Robert, as brilliant as I think you are, you did not come up with all those ideas by yourself.
Absolutely not, yeah.
So what that means, two things. It means courage to ask other people, please tell me what you know that I don't know. And secondly, it's transparency and vulnerability. You had to demonstrate those two things in order to invite other people to give you ideas. So what you've done, through your team is you've said, figure out in how many ways can we continue to serve this population that we are dedicated to. And that has allowed you to build, in this case, occupational resiliency for the club. And I would hope in the process, individually, your staff is beginning to say, oh, there are other ways that I can do this.
Well, pulling a page out of your other book, your Resiliency GPS, you mentioned, a few things that I would put into this category of purpose, right? And so the way that I looked at our club at the beginning of this pandemic was all of our leadership came to serve this organization out of purpose. We came to serve the Boys and Girls Club so that we can, have impact in the community. And that's what drives us personally and collectively. And, with this pandemic, it changed the landscape and therefore the needs in the community. And it was important that we refocused what our purpose was because certain things had moved around. And out of that, creating that culture of safety for ideas and for us to ask ourselves, what else should we be doing? What are the new needs in the community? Creating that environment for leadership created the momentum for us to come up with more ideas. Let's partner with the American Red Cross and let's organize blood drives so that we can get, folks that want to get involved, and us using the relationships and the buildings and all that so that we can do something like collecting blood for those that needed it. And so you're exactly right in that I wasn't the originator of all of these ideas, but the responsibility of leadership is to create that environment for people to want to engage and want to provide their ideas, and then that builds momentum. But as I was thinking about that, your book Resiliency GPS, it frames it up around first knowing where you are, right? So what's your starting point, identifying where you want to go, and then understanding, well, what do I want to accomplish by going there? And I mean, it sounds so simplistic because that's essentially how you got here today, right? So you started at home, you knew you were there, you had to look up the address here. And so for us to think about these, there's a reason why that makes so much sense, right? Is some level of intentionality around, why you're going, what's your purpose and all that. And I think about how that directly ties to all of these things that we're talking about. And your words of choose and have, that also means I would assume that there are certain things that once you acknowledge are things that you don't want to do, maybe you should, if possible, not do those things, right? If there are certain things in your life that don't produce joy and happiness, sometimes you have to do that, right?
Well, if you don't, you're going to have burnout.
Yeah.
So when I think about how do we move from this place to this, and the reason I use the GPS, which stands for me, a growth potential strategy. Oh, how clever of you, Eileen. But you can't get over there until you know where you are here.
Absolutely.
So you've got to stop. You've got to look. You got to listen. Just what they tell us at a railroad track. You don't cross that track until you stop, you look, and you listen. And then you say, where do I want to go? And on that journey, and we don't have to go all the way over here. Maybe it's just this little place over here. Maybe there is a detour over here on this side. But it is living very consciously. And my bias, which I've seen myself do, is too often we live unconsciously.
You just go through the motions.
We
It just kinda
go through
happens,
the
yeah.
motions. We don't even see half that stuff. Now that we step back, we go, oh, I never noticed that before. Oh, I never noticed that before. So one of the reframing, if you will, which I think is also a resiliency skill, is to look at what's happening in one way and then say, how can I reframe this and see this in another way?
Yeah.
So when you talked about some of the ways in which you all have reached out, whether seniors, the blood drive, how long are the clubs open? What you said is, okay, let's reframe this. How can we choose to see this differently? And that power of looking at something differently is what I think of as intelligent optimism. It's different than being just optimistic.
Yes. Your point is brilliant, right? It's not just blind, optimism, because you can only do that a few times and then you crash and burn and people go, that's not going to work. It really is coming back to understanding where you are, what you have, in your toolbox, right? And then being intentional with how you apply that. So, you have the ingredients and you can choose to use those ingredients differently. And for us, it's talent, it's passion, it's, the resources of the Boys and Girls Club applied to solve real world relevant problems, right? And under normal circumstances, we get to do other things and other programs. But right now, the need is different. I want to close on, on a topic that's very important to us at the Boys and Girls Club, which is the power of mentorship, the relationships that we get to build, both with other organizations, with our kids, with our families. I've certainly benefited from the generosity of other people and people that have invested in me. I'd like to ask you, who is your resilience leader role model, someone that you've looked up to, or someone that has influenced you in a significant way?
I would have to say it's my mother. Mom was one of 3 women in med school in the 30s at
Wow.
Temple University. You talk about a pioneer who's going out, and she decided she wanted to learn how to fly. So she went in with 4 guys and bought a plane.
Wow.
And when World War II started, the call went out, they needed women to take the place of men who were called offshore to fight. Mom became a Women's Air Force Service pilot called a WASP. And they had to do everything that the male cadets had to do, except they paid for the privilege to do it. They had to pass all the exams. They learned to fly. 1,726 of them earned the tiny silver wings, just like the male cadets. Now, I want you to think of the courage that it took to do this, the commitment in this case to a cause and to a nation. And they were also, at the end, treated horribly. 38 of them died in the course of duty. But because they were not considered official military, there were no benefits. Now, you would think that would make you bitter. Talk about resilient. When they were disbanded, what did Mom do? Now, remember, in this case, she graduated from med school. She went to Italy with the Red Cross for the remainder of the war. And my brother and sister and I were talking the other day about her. She was the one you wanted with her if there was crisis. She could remain cool no matter what. And life would throw her a lot of curveballs. 3 broken hips, broken leg, pulmonary embolisms, 3 inoperable hernias, and finally a stroke that took out her entire left side, and dementia. She looked at all of these things that would have struck everybody down low, and she said, let's have an adventure. Let's do that. So she, and if I get tears, it's because she would have been 105 this past Sunday.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I can definitely understand why she's your resilience role model.
Yeah.
I hope that you sharing that with me and everyone that is watching honors her legacy. And I hope you know as well, that you are a resilience role model to many others. And as a father to a daughter, and as someone that has committed my life to providing mentors to every young person that I have the opportunity to serve, boys and girls, we do have to understand that part of that responsibility means leveling playing fields. And whether that's breaking through racial barriers or gender barriers, ensuring that every young person has someone or several people in their corner to help cultivate them, to help them find their voice and build their passion and to really develop their skills for resiliency, right? And I just hope you know that the impact you have both as an author, as a speaker, as a coach, and as a friend to many. Your impact is helping people get stronger. And I hope that our young people that are being served by the Boys and Girls Club see you as a success story, because again, I think our world can certainly benefit from more empathy and more selflessness, and us thinking about each other through a different lens. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, and on behalf of every child and teen and family that we serve at the Boys and Girls Club, for sharing your expertise, your passion, and just your insight as we get through this together. We will get through this together, and it really does mean a lot that you're a friend of the Boys and Girls Club.
It was my joy.
Thank you so much for joining us today.